true. It's true. Unless I read from my script that I recorded.
Oh, you got a script
ago.
this week, have you? All right.
No, I don't want to read. I want to engage and look at the camera and, personify, radiate energy.
Well, I'll show you.
I might put this as an outro. Welcome to the Working Audio Tools podcast with myself, Ed Thorne, and co-host Paul Third. The Working Audio Tools podcast is the home of all things mixing and mastering and audio related. We regularly constructively critique mixers and we interview audio professionals from the YouTube and audio industries. This week we have a guest coming all the way over from LA, and I'm going to let Paul introduce him.
Hello, everyone. And Sam, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Now, for anybody who doesn't know, this gentleman here is Sam Sherbin. Now, I intentionally wanted to get Sam on this episode specifically because me and Ed have been wanting to discuss the whole AI debacle, the whole Spike Stent AI thing that's been very, very controversial. But I thought, no, what? Let's actually bring this back into a constructive kind of place and talk about what it's actually like to try and make a career in this competitive world that we are in. Sam's obviously in an extremely, extremely competitive place. In LA, we've had multiple people, i.e. Matty Harris. But obviously with AI, coming in, and it seems to be everywhere now, I think it's very important to try and talk about the importance of the journey, the importance of the craft, and never ever ever lose the journey. So Sam, if you could please tell our audience a little bit about your journey, where you started from and how you've got to where you are now.
Yeah, well, thank you for that awesome intro. And I started off as a artist and a producer. So around when I was 14, 15, I was getting into GarageBand and things like that. And then just wanted to put my music up on MySpace, which was an old social media platform.
MySpace.
And put the music up on MySpace, yeah.
Were you friends with Tom as well?
I was friends with Tom. He was friends with everyone automatically, which is funny. But my first actual recording was when I was 11. There was a PC app called Sound Recorder, which had record, play. It had fast forward, rewind, and it had like 2 sound effects. And my friend would beatbox, and I was rap to it. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I hear my voice back. And it kind of started the journey of what is it that I'm doing and how do I continue it? So in elementary school, I picked up the violin. So I was a violin player. And got frustrated violinist, and then went to the flute, which was even a difficult, more of a difficult instrument to master. And then I got into production. So once I got into production, I had to learn how to record. So then I would buy stuff. I'll go on Gearspace and read what microphone to get. And I just buy every mic. I would AKG, MXL, all these crappy microphones for $100. What's the difference between $100 and $150? Or is it $150 to $250? I did that whole journey. We all did that journey. Remember the blue bottle, the blue mic, that $300, So went through that whole journey, and I mixed out of necessity. I started mixing because I needed my music up to a certain quality. And in college, Bruce Houdin, who was Michael Jackson's recording and mixing engineer, had a master class where he was only picking 10 people in the world. And I applied on a whim. And I guess a few months later, his assistant emails me and said, hey, Bruce picked you. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's wicked. Pretty insane.
Awesome.
And then, my family thought it was a scam. This is like 2010. And, everything is still, emails and things like that. And then Bruce called my house and was like, no, Sam got personally picked by me. And then I flew out to Florida where he was living and learned mixing from the guy who mixed Thriller. Which is pretty insane. I mean,
the engineer of all audio engineers.
All engineers.
I know, we put Bob really high, but if we talk about, like proper audio science, man, like Bruce is just top of the tree.
Bob Claremont is amazing, but Bruce's time is before Bob's. Bruce was recording without compressors. He was mentored by Bill Putnam. That's how far back he goes.
Crazy,
And
yeah.
he was
That's
working with
crazy.
Sarah Vaughan and Nat King Cole, Natalie Cole, Oscar Peterson. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Just the care that he put into recording was just phenomenal. I mean, we set up a band when we were recording for his class, and he brought out all his microphones. He had a 1954 or 55 Neumann U47 in the original bag. Like, it looked pristine. In the original Neumann box, I don't even think Neumann has an example that good of a 47. Yeah, it started from there, and then I learned a lot from Bruce and kept in touch with him. And also Ed Cherney was there, and Bernie Grundman was there. It was just like the who's of engineering. From there, I interned at a studio in New York, East Village. I was working with an Australian band, so I was just interning, being a runner, fixing up cables, that sort of thing. But there was just so much amazing music being made at the time. Chris Cody had a room downstairs, and Chris Cody was the producer for like TV and the radio and Beach House, and they had this amazing SSL G/E series down there in that basement. And Stuart White, who's Beyonce's mixer and engineer, was also down there. So it was an interesting time to be learning and hearing music literally 24/7 in New York at that time.
It sounds very similar to we had Prizzy on, and your journey seems quite similar to Prizzy, where you've started in a big studio with a lot of big names, and you've just, I take it, was it kind of this quite similar where you just had to take your time, be patient, take in as much as you can, and when you got the opportunity, you just kind of grabbed it with like both hands.
Yeah. Those opportunities are funny because everything that we do is so important. If you ask everyone for their food order, you ask if they have any allergies, you ask if they want extra ketchup, and you log it into your phone. So when they say, "Hey, you got the order," you already have the order. You know what I mean? Like, our job is so detail orientated that any, I guess, little mistake, can seem a little harshly, I think, at some point in your career where you're leveling up to the point where, perfection is something that, should, has to be delivered in a sense. There's high expectation for you. There's high expectation. The gig is important. You want to do a good job, and you kind of need some kind of protocol to make sure that you're delivering everything on time, and you're just meticulous about everything.
So actually, that meticulous nature of even just getting the food orders right, obviously is something where, I take it from what you're saying, is that if you can't get a food order right, then kind of how does somebody trust you to be able, to get a mix right and, put that in there, get that in there, change that setting over there. So it is, a lot of engineers look for that meticulous kind of trust, isn't it? It's trust at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a lot of trust, to be honest, because, they could hire anyone else, but they're hiring you for a specific reason, for your discography, for your taste, just friendliness. I had a client, she's like, you're so easy to get in contact with. I have notes, you get back to me in a reasonable amount of time, and those little things matter because people remember that. Not only do they remember how good you mix, remember how easy you are to work with. And that means they're going to hire you again. Because once, I guess, an artist or producer likes what you do and you're able to deliver, there's one consistent client. And you just build that up, and you just build that up.
That brings me to a question, because this is a question we usually ask guests, but I'll ask it now anyway, because on that point of artists having a person that they trust, what I'm finding is I'm trying to contact people on, artists on Instagram and things at the moment. And either they fall into three categories. They're not producing music anymore because they're not bothering, whatever. They don't have any budget, which is most of the reasons or excuses I'm getting. Or they've got their team, which makes me wonder, do you have any advice for people like Paul and myself trying to get established in the industry when so many people already have a team around them? Now, what I'm doing is I'm saying, cool, that's great, that's really good, really happy for you. If you ever need an alternative perspective, or if you want a sample master, I'm offering those things to try and engage in a conversation. But it's pretty hard to kind of knock on doors when people have the doors closed. Yeah,
no, that's a great question. I mean, I kind of go through that too. I have a management team, and sometimes they say, hey, we already have their person. But then this is where you say, hey, I'm happy to do a spec mix for you. I'm happy to do a spec master. You have to be very careful about how many times you do offer that, because you don't want to say that, hey, your time is valuable. You're still a valuable professional, and your time is worth something. And I think for a lot of people, they think their time isn't worth much because they're starting in their journey. No, your time is still worth something. And it's just about being careful about kind of like having a conversation, like they have their own team, or they don't have a budget. So I feel like if it's in those instances, if you do it for free and you like the music, you've already won, because now let's say they come back to you and say, hey, you know what? We'll send you that record to master. Our guy's a little bit late, or he's a little bit busy. Wait for the time, you be patient, and you just start conversation. It doesn't even have to be about music. Hey, I saw your post. I thought that was really great. You kind of segue into something else, and then they'll remember you. They'll say, hey, that guy hit me up 2 weeks ago. You know what? I have a song ready, or my guy is not available. Let's give him a shot. Yeah, the shrinking budgets is a hard thing too, because you want to do the work, but they don't have enough money to pay you for the gig. And you're kind of saying, well, what do I do in that instance? I think you need to have a bare minimum, and you need to figure out what that bare minimum is for you, and just don't accept anything less. Say, hey, this is the lowest rate I could do for you. If that's still too much, you'll say, hey, maybe next time we could work together in the future. You have to establish some core line value where you're like, okay, underneath this point, I cannot do it. This job is really expensive. There's overhead. We take a lot of time and pride in what we're doing. And I get it. I know people really are excited and want to get work in their hands and get things done. But like I said, you still have value, and working for free all the time is not going to really establish that. You could establish, you could look at the market rate and say you're starting out and start at 100, 150 and see how that goes and kind of work your way up. But yeah, it is a tough thing, especially when there's people kind of undercutting or doing things for free or so on and so forth. But when you say, hey, I have a value, I have a baseline value that I'm not going to go underneath, that's kind of how you have those conversations. And maybe, you won't get as many gigs, but when you establish that, you'll feel better about yourself, and you will find someone that has the money. You will find it.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think what's really important to take from that, Ed, is that something there that is really, really big advice for everybody is cold calling. If we think about it the way that we've always been, what happens when we get a cold call? Hello, yes, I'm calling from blah, 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 insurance, yes. So would you like a blah, 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 bang, phone down.
Yeah.
What Sam's made a very good point there is that getting the first introduction you need to do. There's no other way of doing it. But I think what a great piece of advice is to start actually engaging with the artists that you would actually like to work with. So again, actually follow them on social media and start building up a personable relationship where, like, it could just be something that's very off the topic of mixing. It could just be, oh no, really agree. It could be, I was going to say politics, maybe not the best thing to talk about, but again, a guy shares a photo of his dog or a cat and you're like, oh, really cute photo. Oh yeah, I love cats, blah, blah, blah. It could be anything, but just to start that conversation. And if you then start to kind of build a friendly relationship, then, as Sam said, the next time that they're in a position where their guy or girl or them or they can't fill in or they're too busy, then they might go, I just spoke to you last week. You said you're also, I love dogs as well, blah, blah, blah. Ed loves pugs. I love border terriers. It could be anything. But, just having that kind of personable insight sometimes just allows you to get to a place where, you know what, he's not available, but I might try him, because you've went round the approach of kind of building some form of tiny relationship. And if they like the cut of your jib and they feel that, he's somebody that, I could kind of relate to, then actually you might find that you get those gigs. So it is a balancing act, isn't it? It's a balancing act of valuing your time and not kind of undercutting yourself, because me and Ed have talked about it many times that if you just undercut yourself all the time, then people aren't going to value your time. They're going to see you for the price that you're at. Now, it's very, very, very difficult, especially when you've got things like Fiverr and some Indian guys on Sound Better doing fucking mixes for 50 quid a mix and stuff. It's just crazy. Now,
don't forget, I saw one on Fiverr for £16.
Oh, no, I know, I don't. It gives me that absolute fear.
I saw one for $5. on Fiverr. 5 mixes for $5.
Jesus.
I think you buy 3 and you get 3 for free. I've literally
Oh
saw
my
stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, they're not paying for anything. They're not paying for their equipment. They're not paying for anything. Wild. $5.
Maybe they're using Spike's AI plugin.
Maybe they're
Seamless
are.
link to that subject. If you don't have an in-house mastering engineer like we're fortunate enough to have with Marcel at Actu Make with the Working Audio Tools, DistroKid have you covered. For just $99 a year, you can buy unlimited mastering for all of your tracks in tandem with unlimited releases via DistroKid. Mixer from DistroKid uses AI technology to measure the EQ and the dynamics of your track and then present you with numerous options to tweak and customize your master. You can flip between the original and the generic mastered option.
Blame it on the whiskey. Blame it on the bad weed.
So instantly we can hear that's making the track louder, and it's also slightly flattening the EQ, bringing in a little bit more of the mid-range and of course the top end. We can adjust the intensity, which is how much compression and limiting is being applied to the track.
Blame it on the only thing you've ever seen. Run and tell your mother. Blame it on your brother.
I think somewhere in the middle works for this track. And the EQ options are self-explanatory. We can make the track effectively duller or brighter.
Just ain't right. All you do is lie. All you do is try to deny. All you do is lie. Even when you know it just ain't right. All you do is lie.
Download your mastered track and release it as easily as you do all of your other unlimited uploads. Get 30% off your DistroKid subscription using the Working Audio Tools VIP link below.
Let's get into it. Right, AI mixing. Yeah. I know you had quite a few things to say on it, Sam, when it came out. And if anybody hasn't seen the comment thread on the Instagram post, it's quite interesting. There's quite a lot of big engineers that have commented on that. I know Alex Toomey made a good post as well. So in regards to this whole kind of AI thing, it's not out yet. We don't even know what kind of how good it even is. Obviously, this is something, Sam, that is posing as a threat to our craft. What's your view on this whole AI boom? And, you know, do you actually think that it will hurt us? Or do you think it's just going to be a lot of marketing and bull? And some people will sadly fall into that trap of thinking it's going to turn them into Spike Stent overnight when we all know it's not.
I think AI is inevitable, you know? There's a whole bunch of companies already using it. There's kind of a race towards developing the best AI tools. I don't have a problem with AI. I think AI is great. I think there's probably ways to implicate it or put it into the system where it works. Like if Spike Stent had Spike AI assistant and it 100%. Dragged all the files into me and it color-coded. Yep. Anything that his assistant would do, if that AI could do, that would save me so much time. I would buy that instantly.
Yeah, totally.
Hey, the artist just emailed me a new verse. Could tell the AI this is where the download section is. Take that and line it up with the other record. I mean, there's so many things that AI could do. I think when I saw that post, my inclination was, he's very talented. As you guys know from the UK, Spike is one of the biggest UK mixers of all time, and Madonna and Muse, and it just goes on and on. I think that he was probably thinking, if I don't do it, someone else is going to do it. So I'm already established. I have 30 years of mixing. Let me try to figure this out. You know, I'm not trying to, put words in his mouth, but this is the first time I've ever hearing a established mixer at his level jump into the tech space with AI. Now, it's different from Jason Joshua, who's coming out with plugins that probably uses some AI maybe to develop the plugins, but his plugins don't mix for you. His plugins are just a tool. It's just a compressor. It's just an EQ.
Yep.
It has parameters, And those are tools that I think could help us. AI tools, now we're talking about threatening our jobs, right? I don't think AI is going to take anyone's job. And if AI does take your job, maybe it'll make everyone better because everyone's like, wow, this AI is mixing, quote unquote, a little bit better than me. I think the AI will have an issue because the AI can't hear and the AI doesn't have enough sensibility or a sensitivity to the music. We're human. There's certain things, it's just a feel thing. You may boost 5 dB and 5.5 dB, and 5.5 just feels better, and you don't know why. There's no rhyme or reason for it. I think AI tools are good when they're like more like analytical or diagnostic tools that help us think. But think about it, if you went to your doctor and your doctor pulls out a tablet and says, hey, I'm going to diagnose you with AI, you would feel a little weird. You're like, hey, man, like you went to medical school to just take out this thing and just put in my symptoms and say you have this. There's certain things where, as humans, we want another human to be involved.
Correct.
You know what I mean? When it comes to medicine, it comes to things like that.
The argument to that is in the UK, there's endless stories of people getting misdiagnosed and not getting diagnosed and cancer going undiagnosed and things like that. And there was a story that Chris Graham mentioned on his Healthier Home Studio podcast, which is fantastic. It's a follow-on from his Six Figure Home Studio podcast, if anyone knows of those two podcasts. And he mentions this example where this person was ill. They went to a bunch of doctors. They couldn't diagnose what it was. So they put all the symptoms into ChatGPT and it came up with this very rare, specific illness. And they went back to the doctors and they said, oh yeah, it's that. And then they cured this person. So ChatGPT actually did save this person's life.
Oh yeah, apparently. Yeah. I could definitely see that. I could see that happening as well. To be a diagnostic tool where there's enough data set where they could compute it against everything else and then and come up with a solution.
But in that instance,
it
is exactly that. It's a tool that we ultimately need to use. So I think that's where a lot of AI will go. It will be tools that can maybe save us time, cut corners, solve problems for us, and ultimately, yes, it may take jobs away. We've mentioned this before, Paul. If AI could do session prep for us, that's going to be a few people out of a job somewhere. But then opportunities will open up with this as they do. And, it's not the first time we've had a revolutionary change in the industry. I mean, when was it Graham Bell invented the gramophone? All of a sudden music could be recorded. All the live musicians were saying, well, you're going to take our jobs away because people aren't going to need live music anymore. They were terrified. But actually, that was a positive cycle in that people could record music, become fans of the band, and then go and watch them, and they'd be able to sell more tickets on tour, as it were, if tours existed back then, because people could access the music. Just as people, or the live musicians and the classical musicians probably hated when the printing press came out and people could transcribe music, and Tin Pan Alley was selling music in the early 20th century. People could then play music at home. They didn't need to go to live music. They didn't need to hire musicians because they could learn to play it on the piano. So there's always been threats, but the gramophone, look where that is. That's delivered 100 years of music. All the genres have come, alive in the last 100 years. Theory has enabled, printing press has enabled musicians to get better faster, so that we now have the quality of musicians that pop up on Instagram, wonder kids who are only as good as they are because they can read music and advance their theory and skills, further more quickly. So AI is going to do something similar. It will facilitate opportunities somewhere, and the very creative futurists, far smarter than me, Paul, you might be one of them, will be able to join these dots and see what's going on. And I'm just like, I'm not creative enough to figure out what the future is going to be. But
here's the thing, and this is where it all falls apart for me. Everything that we've spoken about so far in regards to diagnostic tools and, again, the printing press and blah, 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 it was all very, what I call very black and white factual things. It's very just like what comes in is what comes out. Where the thing is with music is all about taste, it's all about feeling, and it's all subjective. And that is something that I know for a fact. When I speak to all the mixers, many of them say to me, Paul, most of the time I get paid for my taste. Okay, I've got skills and I've got a good ear, but taste is so important. Like if we take the Sound on Sound thing that they did, where they took like 8 different mixers and they all done the same metal track, all of them sounded different and all of them are regarded. Andrew Sheps was in there and a few other big mixers. All the mixes sounding good, but they all sounded different. And if you look in the comments, what happened? I preferred this, I preferred this, I preferred this, and I preferred that.
That sounds familiar, doesn't it, Paul?
Yeah, I know. But, you know, the thing is with music is that the thing is with AI, the good thing with AI in certain aspects is that it will always give you almost like a predetermined result. It's very fact-based. It's almost, I always say AI is very linear, where when we think about you know, music and you get a mixer, like for example, us 3 could all mix the exact same song and it would all sound different because we have different sensitivities, we have different feels, you know what I mean? Ed, you're a drummer, I'm a guitarist. I mean, it's like everybody's got their own kind of different vibes and they all have their own tilts and they all have their own way that they interpret the song. And a lot of the times the reason that you go to a certain mixer is because you trust their taste. Mannequin talks about it all the time that, you know, Manny goes, people just get me because of my taste, because I have a certain way that I want the track to sound. And a lot of the times I always feel Manny's a very feel-based mixer. Manny's got a great feel, and no matter what he mixes.
He's incredible. I actually went to his Mix with the Masters.
I seen that.
In 2013, I went to his class. When he was mixing, it was all instinct. He was just like on the board and just mixing. It was incredible to see. And that's when I was like, okay, he's pulling from 20 years of experience.
Yep.
Mixing every single day, thousands and thousands of mixes on the desk every single day. And that interpretation and that feel, that's what you ultimately get paid for at the top level, because everyone knows that all these people can mix. One mixer might focus on something that the artist may love. They're like, oh, wow, you dialed in those drums a little bit nicer to my specifications than someone else did. And that might just land you the gig. It could be the smallest refocusing of that focal point in that song that got you the record. And that's the taste thing. You just like drums a little bit more transient. Someone may like them a little bit more laid back. And when you do get a mix from different people, it's almost you get a different kind of energy from it. You almost hear things completely differently because they're hearing things differently. They're focusing on things differently. You know what? Back to the AI could do one mix, but then you tell it to do the mix again, it'll probably do it the same way. Whereas if you gave it to a human on a Monday and on a Tuesday, they might be feeling a little bit differently. Like my brain is always going about mixing and trying to get 1% better every day. And the critical nature that analyzing my own work, I can't imagine that an AI at this point is going to be as self-critical, because I don't know if it has that built into its nuance where it's saying, oh, this is good enough based on the data set that I have. This is good based on numbers and calculations versus feel versus instinct. There's no instinct involved with AI. I've done mixes where I've done a first pass of a mix and I would do 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 because I'm slightly changing it a little bit before I send it to the client. Because the next day I want to alter one little thing.
Yeah.
That could be very, very small, but it just feels different. It could be the most smallest move, but for me, it just shifts perspectives on things, and I always wondered how AI is going to be able to do that. I guess you would just tell it to do another mix, and it'll just do it again.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, it'll just do it again.
It depends if there's a chat GBT element of it where you can type in, okay, great mix, but focus on this, change that.
Yeah, that's what Spike's. If you look at the screenshot,
Right.
If you zoom in, he has some kind of like chat prompt in there. And I wonder how that's integrated into the system. It actually looks pretty intelligent, really smart.
It does.
Looks like it has multiple channels. I don't know if you have to put it on every single channel to see it route in other things. I know Isotope has those features. Other plugins have the features where you could put it on different tracks, and then on the side of it, you'll see all the inserts of that plugin on like a master plugin and see where the routing is going. So the plugin can see all the instances of it on different tracks, and you can see it on one session view. You know?
Yeah, and Paul, we've used Sonable Smart EQ4, where you can group instruments and prioritize them in terms of EQ focus.
However, though, see if you even think about Ozone, like Ozone itself is flawed. Like Ozone's great as a tool, but there's been times that we've stuck, you know, a country song into it, and it's came out as like a random genre, and it sometimes can't even tell you that it's the right genre. And that's Ozone that's been like learning. And so many times you'll stick it in Ozone, and I'll normally do the same thing, I find. I'll normally do the same kind of low-end boost and the high-end boost.
Oh, yeah,
and
every time, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll clarity will be like at the exact same
25.
setting.
Stability, 25.
Yeah, it's very linear. Humans in our nature are non-linear. Like when you put, this is how I see humans, is that when you put a mix through a human, what you give us isn't the same as what you get back. Where I just kind of think this Spike AI thing is going to be almost like an AI signature plugin. And I think that's what it's going to be. There's going to be set parameters in there. Because I know, for example, I've watched interviews with Spike, and he'll say boost 200 hertz on bass quite a lot. So I guarantee if you say, I want more low end, or I want the feel of more low end, I'll do a very standard script, and it'll be like 200 hertz on a bass with an SSL style fucking curve. And that's all I think it's going to be. I think it's scary that we're at the start of this. And what's scary is that producers will start to get lazy and artists will start to get lazy, because it's like, well, the only thing I disagree with it is that it's credit based from what I can see. So it's a bit like Access Analogue. So if anybody doesn't know what Access Analogue is, there's gear online, and you could go through the gear losslessly, and you've got credits, and you get a credit for every hour that you use.
Now, there's motorized analog gear at the other end, and you upload get a plugin and change the parameters. Yeah.
With Spike AI, from what I've seen, you're going to buy credits, and every time you ask the AI a question, that'll be a credit. So I think what they're trying to say is that you set a budget for a mixer, so you would have a set budget, which would be credits, and you tell the AI what to do. But I raised this point to Sam early doors, where here's the biggest flaw in it, is because it's very linear, and ChatGPT can be found out many times. Me and Ed sometimes have got, and Emra and lots of people, we love to catch ChatGPT out, because it's very easy for ChatGPT to get caught out and give you misinformation. So if you, for example, right, now again, I don't want to slate anybody, so I'm not going to say a specific brand, but you could be in an untreated bedroom with a set pair of speakers that don't translate very well, and you're in your room and you're sitting there going, needs more bass. Yeah, that's a little bit on the harsh side. Let's bring that down. And the chat and the AI will go, okay, no problem. It's linear. Okay, you tell me what to do, I'll do it. It can't translate for you. A mixer would sit there and say, you're asking me for that. That's not translating very well. Yeah. Then again, I mean, look, is AI going to have the I'm going to swear here, but the does fuck all button? We all know there's been many times, with certain engineers when they're like, I really don't want to do this. Yeah. Bring up the vocals, a dB. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. 0.2 dB. Did you raise it up a dB? Yeah, I did it. And the placebo effect works, you know what I mean? And there's times where it's like, yeah, you want that? Add that in. I'll do it. You want me to add in the does fuck all button? Yep. Does that sound great? Yeah, that's it, man. Brilliant. That's what I wanted. Cool. AI is not going to do that. AI is going to spit out whatever you ask it to do. So if you've not got very good translation in your room, or you don't have very good, trained ears, your AI is going to spit out what you ask it to, which is probably going to end up with really, I don't want to say unregulated, but like mixes that just don't translate well. And your artists are going to sit back and go, but the Spike AI told me it was great. And I told it what to do, and it did it. And why does my mix not translate? Yeah, because it's not a human being. Yeah,
it's not going to do this car check. It's not going to check on 3 different speakers and headphones and earbuds and all that.
Well, that's where the it won't ease an artist's insecurity about their record. It makes the mixing into an afterthought, right? Because some artists they come in a little insecure about the record, and you have to ease them through it. And then they're super happy and they're more confident because you're confident. You say, hey, I've done this hundreds of times. I know it's going to sound good. Trust me. And then when the record comes out and they get their biggest streamed record, they're going to love you. But AI can't reassure an artist. The reason why, you know, okay, so you give it credit. Let's say you give it $200 of credit and it does the record for you. You mix the record and then you decide that you want changes and you're going to have to go back and then put it back into the AI and things like
no
that.
Free
Where a
revisions
human might hear your story and say, you know what, man, don't worry about that. You don't have to pay for that. I'm just going to give you a quick update real quick. There's things that the AI won't be able to do. And then also, like, it just won't ease that insecurity. I think it'll lean more into it because then it's giving you too much choice. Because then you can just tell it what to do and it'll just, like Paul said, it'll continue doing it. I don't think Spike's AI, but listen, I have over 30 years of mixing knowledge in my computer. I think this sounds good, and it just ends the chat for you. You know what I mean? I think it's gonna. You know, there's some mixers where they'll say, "Hey, I think this is done," and they'll kind of push back and say, "I think this is, you know, we're gonna hit diminishing returns soon." You know what I mean?
I mean, it might go the other way. It might be programmed to be like, "Are you sure this is finished? You don't want to spend five more credits just
5
tweaking
more
this
credits.
and that?" And
Yeah.
you know, are you sure?
Yeah.
Playing into doubt. And I mean, I've just had an email saying Spike AI version 2 is going to have some artist coaching Autobots on there that's going to say, "Great job. Let's do that again. Awesome. You nailed it. Well done.
Oh my God.
You sound great."
Just like the little audio paperclip, like the paperclip back in the day, just come up.
Yeah.
The paper
This
clip.
is a vocal track. Awesome.
Your vocal does not need any auto tuning. It sounds amazing, and your drums are in time.
In the background, it's fixed ill.
Yeah, totally. But I think what's important to kind of discuss, Sam, is as an industry mixer, as somebody that's making a full-time living doing this, what are the things that you feel that people are going to miss by going down, you know, a software route? What are they going to miss from, you know, the relationship aspect of it? You know, what are they going to miss from not going to a human being as opposed to just, you know, getting software to try and give them a interpretation of what they think it wants?
What they're gonna miss is just the human interaction. You know, so many of my clients, I did a mix revision, and she was so happy because I did the audio movers. I'm like, you know what? Let's do this on audio. They thought that was the coolest thing ever, and the mix was done in 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and we spent 1 hour just talking about music.
Yep.
And she said,
Nice.
"That's why I hired you, because not only are you a great mixer, you're just a great person to talk to." And it just eased that. She's like, "You make this process so easy." She's like, "Oh, I want the vocal a little bit darker." You did it quick, boom, it was done. It was great. And that's the other thing. We're almost like AI. The AI is trying to mimic a human brain. You know, the speed at which we're calculating these things is insane. And especially if you've been doing it for decades and decades. I can imagine talking to Spike, getting a mix from Spike is probably cool. If you go to his studio, you go to England or you go to the UK and you're sitting in his room and he's mixing and he's telling you all these awesome stories and stuff, you're going to feel even more reassured that you got the right person. You know, I think the AI doesn't really give you the assurance. It's just cutting a corner, right? It's basically cutting a corner.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't have the money, you can get something like it. And I noticed this in my whole journey. The second you cut corners, you have to spend double because you're going to end up buying what you originally thought you wanted to get or mix
100%.
who you wanted to get. You're like, "Oh, I don't have the money. You know, you could do an extra job. You could, you know, do things to raise money. You could save. There's a bunch of things you could do to make sure, you know, you're making the right decision. But the AI tool could be cool. You know, I'm not against it. It could be cool for someone who doesn't know mixing and maybe wants to use the AI to learn how to communicate with a mixer, because they found some use in it. They wouldn't have gone through the R&D and all the protocol and all the stuff to even make a plugin, and they probably thought about just making a signature plugin probably at some point. But then they're like, you know what? No one has done an AI plugin, and no one has done an AI plugin. The interesting thing about the Spike AI is Spike is still mixing.
I know.
Not like he retired or he's 80 years old and can't mix anymore. He's still mixing, which makes it even more interesting because what about the clients that, work with him? Are they going to test out the AI just for giggles? And then, what if Ed Sheeran is like, let me test Spike AI. And he's like, oh, that's why I hired Spike. And it might reaffirm, it might make him even more happy that he's hiring Spike because he uses the AI. It might actually give people work because the AI might not be what people think. And also, from a sensibility thing, it only has Spike sensibilities in that AI. It doesn't have Andrew Sheff's or Manny's or, all these other. Now, that would be an interesting AI if it ingested all these mixer styles and all of a sudden you had different mixer styles. And that's probably something that's going to happen.
Yeah, Spike's going to be the first. I don't know how to say this without being controversial, but fuck it, I'm just going to say it. I think what's going to happen is there are going to be certain mixers that were big and have a good legend, but you don't really hear that much of them now. I'm not going to mention certain names. I think some of these mixers are going to cash in. And I think you're going to
leave
all
a comment
of a sudden,
with your guesses to who Paul is thinking about.
Yeah, the guesses. I think some of
who he's
these
thinking about.
some of these mixers are probably going to cash in because at the end of the day, they've all got to make money at the end of the day. A lot of them aren't making money off of mixing. But that's what I don't want. I agree with you, Sam. I think if done in the right way, it could be a great learning tool. But there's better ways to do it because by using the credit function, it's marketed as a replacement for a mix engineer. And when I was looking through the Instagram comments, I was seeing like comments from producers being like, great, I hate dealing with mix engineers anyway. And I'm like, no, like, this isn't the way it's meant to be. I think what's important is, as you said, Sam, it's human beings, right? We long for communication. It's like, that's why me and Ed's YouTube channels are very popular. That's why this podcast is popular. That's why we get DM'd constantly every single week. And that's why when we went to Gearfest and NAMM, that we sit and have all these conversations with people because people long for, having a human being to discuss things with. Because there is something that's very it's insensitive and cold about, going to AI. That's why, people will be shocked, but I've got 3 mentoring clients now, and I'm not even like a full-time mixer, but there's people in Scotland that have been paying me, like starting out their journey, just to be like, Paul, I love the mixes that you do. Come on, could you give me a pointer here? And can I spend an hour of your time just asking you questions about really rudimental things, but I know that you know about them? Okay, cool. And they're just like, I just need to have somebody that I can trust. And artists will be the same. Because at the end of the day, if you're pummeling something through AI, you've still got that note. Like if you put it through Ozone, just because we put a mix through Ozone doesn't mean that we go, right, guys, that's it, mix is brilliant. No, we still have those weird, anxious thoughts of, right, okay, I need to do the car test. I need to test on the headphones. I need to test on all my other speakers. We're always second guessing ourselves. And I think that's never going to change. And I don't think AI is ever going to make anybody feel like AI is never going to be able to make an artist know for sure that mix is the right one.
The ambient AI will.
Yeah. Imagine a fucking ambient AI. Jesus Christ.
You ever call a company and you just hear the operator, you just hear the automatic message, and it's like, I want to talk to a person. Do you want to talk to a person? Yes.
And you all the time. I hate it.
You hit 0 every time, and you're just like, I just want to talk to someone because this thing is not getting it. And it's like, sorry, I don't understand what you mean. And you're saying it over and over. You're just like, operator, you just want to hear a person because there's nuance that computer cannot understand. And music is beyond nuance. You know what I mean?
100%.
And I just think, like you said, you have clients and people that need mentorship. They want a human. That's why they came to you. You have the knowledge. You have the insight. And you've made the mistakes, and we all made mistakes, which made our 100%. Journey even more. We made the mistakes so that we don't have, someone else doesn't have to make the same mistakes. And that's the reassurance that people are looking for. But yeah, as a tool, it's going to be a tool. It's going to be used. People are already making it. People are already using it. But there's always a human at the other end double checking the AI. You know what I mean?
I think what AI will do ultimately is lower the threshold to entry, the barrier to entry for all this. The way a laptop and, Ableton and, Fruity Loops have enabled any person, teenager in their bedroom to create beats and upload them to YouTube and create library music from home. It's going to further enable and facilitate more people to be able to do that, and more people to be creative, people who are creative but can't mix or don't understand or can't be bothered, sadly. That will facilitate them to be able to put music online. So this, Daniel Ek may have called this, actually. I think, was it February 2022 or 23 when he announced 100,000 songs and podcasts were going online a day on Spotify. He called it that by 2025, don't quote me on this, but some daft statistic by 2025 or 26 or 27, there'd be 350,000 songs going up every day onto Spotify. And this might facilitate it, but the what we're experiencing already is a lot of music that goes out, there's no quality control. So a lot of it is utter, quite frankly, shite. Now, what will then emerge will be the cream. The cream will always rise to the top, as they say. And I think we're going to pendulum swing in one direction for the next 2 or 3, maybe 5 years, where everything is AI processed, everything is impossibly clean and possibly perfect and unnatural and sterile as a result, is my prediction. And this isn't my analogy, but I think I got this from Chris, but it's a good point to make. At the end of the 80s, when everything was quantized, synthesized, everything started sounding similar. Then came along guitar music again, unquantized grunge music with passion and energy and a voice and a relatable human feel. I think in 5 years, there'll be a swing back in that positive direction.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And people are like, cool, I want you to mix that guitar that I recorded there like that band from the 80s or the 70s or something. Maybe AI will get so good that you can put in chat commands and be like, make this sound like AC/DC. Maybe, but I think it's going to be a tool that people can use to improve their craft and make things work quicker. Like, I'm really thinking about digital recallable analog stuff at the moment. I love the analog sound, but analog recall is a ball ache. I knew it before I bought it, but I wanted to try it anyway. So I'm cycling through stuff to make it digitally recallable. It's just a system of combining the two things. I want the analog sound, but I want the digital recallability.
Basically, are you fully in the box, or is there an odd piece that you might go to, or is it like Jason?
I'm completely in the box. I have the SSL UF1 UC1.
Yeah,
I have the soft tube, and that's it. I used to have API 2500, 5500. I had a Crane Song head. I had a Brent Avro 1073. I had a Distressor. I had Mog. I had all these things. And I had a client in LA at the time when I was living in New York, and I had to do a recall, and I told myself it's not worth the recall. And then I looked at Chad Blake. I'm like, well, if Chad can mix in the box and Sherbin's mixing in the box, there's no real reason why I shouldn't be mixing in the box. So I got rid of everything and just literally told myself, I'm going to make this work. And I just made it work. But it took a few years to get the feel that I wanted. But I think my mixes have been the best they've ever been because I'm in the box. And because of the recall, like I had a client one time, they wanted to open up a session that was from 2019, perfect recall. Opened it up, took the stems out, and that was it. And I love gear. I love the interacting with the gear. I love what good analog gear could do to records. But I'm more in like the pop space, and I'm just like, well, I need to get the variables where they're just perfect recall, basically. And the plugins just get better and better. They're just so good now.
Oh,
so it's
crazy,
just a preference thing now. It really is. The biggest mixer, Sherbin, he's been in the box for like almost 20 years.
Decades.
And he showed his setup, and I'm like, wow, this guy gets more records than anybody pretty much. And he's able to do that because he's in the box.
Yep,
if you're on the
100%.
desk, that takes time to put it on the desk, take it off the desk. I have friends who assisted big-time mixers who were on the console. Sometimes it will take hours just to put it up on the desk, take it off the, so So yeah, I like that, and also I like my Ocean Ways. I used to have barefoot MM27s,
Oh,
and
interesting.
yeah. I used to have those, and now I've been rocking the Ocean Ways for I don't know since 2015, I think. Yeah, once I went in the box, I changed
Are
everything.
they 2-ways or 3-ways?
They're 2-ways.
Yeah.
Which model? The Pro 3s?
The Pro 2As. They have a lot of low end. People always think there's a sub in here, and there's no sub. I went to Alan's side studio,
Seen
or
that.
the facility, Ocean Way, and he was talking about these, and they're just super punchy. I think they were derived from a hi-fi setup that they had. They had one that looked a lot similar to it, and yeah, they're great.
And what do you look for in speakers? So, like for example, like you were on the Barefoots, and have you got the Yamaha? Is it the HS beside it?
No, I have no other speakers. I used to have HS8s. I used to have those
Yeah,
back in
thought I've seen that. So,
Yeah.
so you're just rocking the Ocean Ways. So, what is
Yeah.
it about the Ocean Ways that gives you the translation? Like, what is like the sound character of that? Because I love hearing about speakers that I've not really heard of before. I've heard of them, but you're the very first person that I know that's
Yeah.
owned a pair. So, kind of tell our audience kind of what it is about these that you like in particular.
Well, when I was looking at speakers, I was looking at Ampion, I was looking at ATC. I was looking at a system that had punchy low end, clear definition, where you could hear sub stuff in between 30 and 40 hertz, and that you were going to get the clarity of the mid range, and you were going to get a nice top end. These speakers are pretty brutal in the sense that they make you work hard for the mix. They don't sound they're not flattering in a sense when you listen to it and
Yeah.
everything sounds pretty. There's a lot of speakers that make stuff sound pretty, and then people, when they mix, it doesn't translate, or the speakers are transient fast. Like when I talk about PMCs, people say they're bright. I don't think they're bright. I just think they're fast. They shoot transients
So
fast, so your ear
So
feels like
fast.
it's bright. So I have a friend who doesn't like bright vocals on them. He's like, I like vocals dark. I'm like, you like them dark, but they might be too dark when they come out of the PMC room. So my speakers are a little bright. So I had to make stuff a little bit brighter on them, and then when you take them out of the room, they sound good.
So, do you use any correction software like Trinov
Nope.
or Arc or
Nope.
Just learned it.
I tried that for like a day, and I said, hell no. I don't know. It shifted things in a way that I was like, okay, this doesn't make sense. I got the tube shafts and the stuff on the wall and things like that, and gonna have acoustician come up and rework the room and things like that. It's just how you hear things. You know, these things are not perfect science. There's studios that they spend $500,000 on rooms, and some people might not like the sound of that room. So it's just about how you know how you translate, and what you know translates in your room, because only you would know that, right? And once you know
100%.
the things with the speaker, you're not going to get everything that you want out of a speaker, but you should at least feel like you know that speaker, and you know where the things are. So when you get a mix up, you get a master up, you're like, you know, I heard so many records on here, and I know where it leans. So they've just been working great for me. And I don't change. I'm not one of those people that I'm constantly changing what works, or what, you know, just to see if there's anything better. They're kind of chasing. Oh, can I get better? Can I get better? I'm like, can I get better as a mixer versus can my tools get better? My tools are already stellar, you know?
And what about headphones? Do you worry about headphone translation, or do you generally just mix on speakers and go, and I've learned them and I know that translates well, and you just kind of rock the speakers?
I have my Oddities, my LCDXs.
Oh yeah, so you do. Yeah, because I remember seeing a post by Odyssey, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm
covered
an
you with
artist.
it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm an artist with them, and they're really great. I do all my cleanup work with them. They're really good. Like literally, I heard a reverb tail that wasn't even showing on the Pro Tools meter. It wasn't even showing audio level, and I could still hear it, which is crazy. So I do the audio stuff on there. I'll check there, but I always tell people, you know, get your AirPods, get your iPhone. That's the ultimate. That's the final check. Play it on my phone and play it on my AirPods, because a friend of mine Ramsey yesterday. We were talking. He was like, he mixed on Overtones, and he's like, no one has $10,000, $15,000 speakers. When you really think about it, most people don't even have a speaker equivalent to an HSA. And how much is that? Like $200, $300 a pair. So the average person is only listening to A in their phone, their car, on their AirPods, or something equivalent to that. So once you learn that as well, then you got all your checks there. And it all just goes to feel after that point, you know, because you're not going to get everything you want out of those AirPods or the iPhone, but some people's mixes sound great coming out the phone. Yeah. It's an average.
That's what we talk about all the time. It's an average.
It's an average, and
of the last
when it sounds
seasons,
good on the phone, it makes you feel good. Because when you go on Instagram and you scroll and you hear a song, it doesn't sound like rubbish. You know, you could hear the vocals, you could even feel the bass to some extent. You know, with certain records. And
are you a less is more approach, or do you, again, is every mix just instinctive? Because before we went on, my wife was asking me, so have you got on tonight? I said, I've got Sam Sherbin. And then I mentioned Rachel Platten, and she was like, she done Fight Song, didn't she? And I was like, right, okay, let's see the one that you mixed. Man, the vocal, honestly, I don't know if it was just the vocal recording was amazing, but her vocal on that mix you did sounds fucking credible. Like, I was listening to that, like, wow, like, that is such a beautiful vocal. She's an amazing vocalist, but like, see, like on a record like that, did you have to do a lot on that, or was it just, you know, less is more, or again, was it just, again, instinctive, which is like
less is more. They came in through my good friend Nick Lee, who also I think recorded that, and co-produced with Nick is an incredible talent, amazing producer, and has a great sensibility, and the record came in amazing, right? All I did was a little bit of EQ, and that was it. I don't even think I compressed that, if I recall. Wow. I don't even think I may have compressed a little bit of things here and there, but it was literally, you probably had one or two plugins on a few inserts, and that was it. And mind you, when you work with high-level producers, they're already treating the stuff really well. So that's when your judgment comes in and says, this is really, really good. This just needs a little bit of EQ, a little bit of massaging. And it went out, and you know, it's just that's when your knowledge and your experience comes in, and sometimes less is more, and you sound like a genius because you did exactly what they were expecting to do, and it just sounds so much better because you didn't change anything else, but you focused on what was important. When I just put all the focus on the vocal and those strings and those parts, you just got to get out of the way of whatever is making the record work. Once you find whatever is making it work, you emphasize that, and everything else, there's tiers of it. There's like, once you get a vocal in the record, that's number one, right? Then you have drums, you have rhythmic, then you have melodic. Once you sort all those things out, you're going to be mixing a lot easier because you're not trying to mix every single thing. The thing has already been mixed. Technically, there's a producer mix. So once you establish what they want, and some people want you to reinvent the whole thing, you know, but once you have that conversation with the artist, what they're looking for, but mainly speaking, if you're working with a high-level artist, high-level client, and they have a very good reference, you do not stray from that reference. Yeah, you just figure out what's making it work, where you could add excitement, where you could add some energy, just bring some more emotion into it, with EQ and sensibility, and figuring out what's giving the record more of an excitement. If there's like a hi-hat thing that's going on, you can accentuate that. All of a sudden the energy goes up. You didn't even do anything. You just raised one percussive part up, and all of a sudden the song feels like it's moving faster a little bit. It's grooving a little bit more. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Adding a little bit of a reverb, giving it a little bit more space, opening it up a little bit. There's these little things that could do that make a huge difference when you get records like the record that you're referring to.
The way you described that really makes me want to come and watch you mix. It's almost romantic.
I feel like a lot of people want to watch me mix, and then they see my session. They're like, I don't know how you just did that with Pro Q3. And I'm just like, it's really listening. And it's listening. You're listening you're instinctively listening, but you're listening for something to find. When I look at plugins, I just look for musicality. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what it does. If it gives me a little bit more musicality, and I use that as if I boost something, if I cut something, am I getting a good feel out of it? Like, whoa, like, oh, is that bringing out some kind of harmonic detail or something like that that's making me feel the music a little bit more? That's what my criteria for plugins is it more musical?
And do you think that that's a problem that we've got where we do tend, especially in plugin land, that we overthink everything? And, that's been something that we found on this podcast, that I had a very, again, Paul Third being overly technical, wow, what a surprise, but I would be over analytical on mixes where I would try and get everything in the mix to sit perfect. And I'd be like, but I want that to be audible and that to be audible and that to be audible. And then, you send it back, to a client, or again, people would listen to it on the podcast. And, I think that's what Ed's very good at, is that there'd be times where Ed would be like, yeah, I buried it because it wasn't important for the song. It was just a feel element. That was the priority. Yeah. And I think that's something that many people, I think a lot of amateurs probably get wrong, is that they get in too much into the weeds and they get into all the plugins and they go, then they end up with plugin chains that are like fucking the length of your arm. When really all they needed to do was just a tiny bit of EQ, maybe a splodge of compression, and that's it.
I think the reason why that is because people don't know the tools. When they don't know the tools, they're trying to add another tool to compensate. But if you know exactly what you're looking for, any tool could do, right? If you have Pro Q3,
100%.
You have Kirchhoff, which is amazing. You have these tools. It's like, if you're doing a construction job, you kind of look at the site and you say, hey, I need X amount of nails, I need X amount of hammers, I need plywood, I need this, I need that. And you don't go there just with every single thing under the sun, and you're just wasting time.
100%. Yeah.
The fundamentals are important, because once you learn the fundamentals, then you could understand where each tool is needed and what tool is needed for what job.
That's a very good analogy.
When people have 7 plugins on a chain, I get sessions and I look at their EQ and I'm like, I don't even know what they're trying to achieve. Like, I can't understand what, they're trying to make it brighter. Why are they boosting all of this? They could have just used a shelf even a little bit lower and got it even brighter. Yeah. You see all these are sued people. I had a session and the sued looked like Batman. It was just pointing up here and pointing up there. And I was like, I didn't know. I couldn't understand what they were doing, what they were trying to do. I was like, they're trying to de-harsh it, or they're trying to do it because they saw that on YouTube or something like that. And a lot of these educational tools are great, but when you see someone mix the record, usually you're seeing a final mix, right? You're not really. I think some of them you see them mix scratch, but those records are like phenomenal, right? You hear the rough mix and you're like, wow, like that record is not that far off.
Yeah, that rough mix is better than anything I've ever mixed.
Yeah,
yeah. I watch mixers and masters all the time, and some people's way of working is great, like Chad, but Chad knows that chain. He knows what each of those things do. So when he has a lot of plugins, he knows what the result is going to be. And at the end of the day, his mixes sound amazing. Whether he uses 10 plugins or 3 or none. But he has the knowledge to understand what tools is he using and what outcome he's trying to get. I think when people are throwing plugins on and all these things, they don't actually know what outcome they want. They're just hoping that the chain will get them to the outcome, and all of a sudden they'll arrive there. If they throw God Particle on or this or that on, they're like, if I throw that on, maybe I'll be closer. But if you already have like a clear vision in your head of what you want, it makes it a lot clearer, your decision making, how to get there. If you're in your head, you're like, I want these sounds to be super distorted. Man, instead of using 7 plugins, you can just use the devil lock. Turn that up.
Yeah.
Turn up the mix knob. You know what I mean? Like, once you it's kind of like being a director. I'm into directors and seeing how they think about the set and how they think about the shoot. Some of them, like Scorsese, he would write the music down in the screenplay. Like, I want this song to play right here in this scene, and it'll be in the actual final version of the movie. So some people just know exactly what they're looking for. And it's a huge learning curve. Oh, my God. The learning curve of recording and mixing is still, to this day, I'm learning stuff. You know what I mean? it's not an impossible journey, but I think for people, I think they should have grace for their journey and just take it slowly. Because it's one thing where you don't know anything about mixing and all of a sudden you're watching Jason Joshua mix, who's been mixing for 20 years and he's using all these plugins and you're just like, I don't know how to use a C6, but he's using a C6, so I'm going to use that. It's interesting to know, like, you know, just take time with it, you know, and you'll be happy with the end result if you just take your time and just learn at your pace. Because a lot of these things are super advanced. They're really advanced. Like if I was learning and I was watching that, I wouldn't even know what they're doing. Even if I copied it, I'm like, oh, you know. Even now, like if I watch those videos, I might copy something just to hear what it sounds like on my end. And sometimes I'm like, that's cool. I learned a little bit here, but most of the time it's just seeing about how different people work. That's the most inspiration, to see how those people work and how they think about a song, you know, versus what they did on that song.
Yeah, I think the YouTube community and the audio education community is very guilty of instilling fear and not so much FOMO, but a sense of inadequacy into a lot of young people, because, you know, if you don't know this trick or that trick, your mixers suck. And, you know, I'm conscious on my channel of trying not to propagate
it's
that
so
kind
hard
of...
not to clickbait shit. It's so fucking hard because of the way YouTube works.
But it's making me, people think, well, okay, like, and I get it sometimes. I'm like, oh, right, I don't use that SSL plugin or that plugin or that, and maybe I need to. And I think it's a case of educate yourself with as many techniques as you can and just choose what works. You know, some things you gravitate to, some things you don't. You know, I've tried the SSL EQ things and I'm like, nah, Pro Q3 does everything I need.
Yeah.
That's on every bus. Cool, run with it. Why change what's working? So just to round off, going back to something I mentioned earlier, talking about advice for people trying to get in the industry or become more established, what advice would you give people like myself and Paul to become established mix engineers?
Just remember your why. You know, at the end of the day, just remember why you got into it, and that's going to give you the passion. Just remember that you love music and you wouldn't want to do anything else but make music.
Oh, I love that answer, because we've not had it on the podcast.
I know.
Yeah, because everyone, you know, everyone's journey is different. You know, I look at some of my friends, I'm like, wow, that guy got a #1 record. His journey is different than mine. And it's easy to compare now your journey versus other people's that are more established in this and that. But you got to remember your journey is different. And this is a long game. This is a long-term game. And what I was saying in my Instagram post, a lot of those mixers that we all looked up to, they're in their late 50s, early 60s. You know, these guys have been mixing for a long time, and we're still young and we're still working and mixing. And that just shows you that it's a long journey. And a lot of those guys are having some of the best years of their career now, at the later point of their career. So that just tells you a lot about that. But I did remember one thing that I want to say. I don't know if we can edit it, but Paul, did you do the video on the Mixhead plugin?
Yes. That was
the controversial,
Yep.
So I love that plugin, and I think it's a really cool plugin, and I love that you made an analytical part of it. Like, hey, what is it doing? What do you think it's doing? Could you get a different result for free or for less money? And wasn't there like a rebuttal video or something like that?
Yeah, and I was getting so much into the weeds where I was like, I knew I'd kind of proved the point that I needed to prove. And it's happened before with me where, you know, I've said, well, this is actually what it's doing. Here's a few null tests and stuff. And then it starts to get pretty nasty. And it got very nasty. You know, many people were saying to me, the Metric Halo were like, nah, he deserves the hate. And there was a lot, similarly on Gear Slots, it got really bad about me. And at that point, I kind of sat back and I said to Ed, I remember that week, I said, that's the last time I do this. As much as people really appreciate the work that I go into, I was like, I can't keep doing this anymore because it's not worth it. And it's such a distraction at the end of the day. Because instead of mixing, you know, I was going into the weeds about a plugin, and I sat back and went, it's a tool at the end of the day. I understand how it's used, how Sherbin uses it, and I understand how it can be used. But at the end of the day, I sat back and I thought, I've just genuinely found out everything that I could about that plugin, and I'm not even going to use it. And I remember I said to Ed and said, and I was just like, why have I done this? And I think that's the problem, that we get so consumed by all the new flashy plugins that come out. Buy this, buy that, buy this, buy that, buy this, buy that, buy this. And because Sherbin had used it, you know, people were like $200, right? Okay, well, okay, I'll just buy it. And a lot of people were buying it and not even understanding why they actually wanted to use it and how. And I think you've raised a great point. You know what I mean? It is about the why, and it's always about the why. The first thing should always be, oh yeah, I'll get soothed up. No, like, what does that guitar need? Right, listen to it. What do I feel? How's it sitting in the track? If you're automatically going to put something on and you don't really understand why you're doing it out of proxy, then it's 9 times out of 10 the wrong decision. And I think what you've talked about great is to talk about, you know, the importance of listening to the song, listening to the mix, and just thinking about the things that are important, which is what every great mixer we have on this podcast talks about. It's about the feel, you know, it's about the song and, you know, the priority of the song and, you know, trying to get that artist's vision, you know, maybe 5-10% better, whatever that is. And a lot of the times, as I shared screenshots on Patreon of a mix that we've done recently, you're talking just like, it was just a bit of EQ, maybe the odd bit of compression, bit of saturation here and there, reverb and delays. There's no secrets. That's just, that's all.
There's
I
no
thought
secret,
that
and people want a secret, right? The secret makes it so that, you know, like the Sherbin thing, people have been dying to know what he uses. And I think what John Haynes says in the group, he's like, it doesn't matter what he uses because the records that he's getting are so amazing, and he knows the room, he understands 100%. It. And yeah, you know, I have so many plugins. I think I only use like legitimately 10. And I rarely buy any other new plugin other than if a session doesn't have it, I just buy it. But I don't want to say that this tool is going to make me better. I'm going to get better at what the tools I already have. And I'm going to continually get better and understand what these records need versus what I need to do the job. You know? You don't see doctors running out of surgery like, oh my God, I need the latest thing to do this surgery. No, they've been using the same tools for hundreds of years. And, you know, new tools, I think, are great, but just remember why you're buying it. And it's easy to get into the hype of a lot of new stuff because it's new. It's new, it's shiny, the stuff probably sounds great, but I still use our compressor, and that sounds great, and that's like 20 years old. You know?
So many people do. R-Vox, R-Bass, like a lot of the earliest Waves plugins are arguably their best. That's what I say to people
of all time,
Yeah, so many. And again, you think about, you know, I know that some plugins, you know, have, you know, infused a lot of those simple Waves algorithms in other plugins. You'll never know, but I know some of them that have infused it in. And again, it's a lot of simple things. And I think what I have kind of battered Waves a lot over the years, as years have went on with, you know, the whole Waves update plan and stuff like that. But what I liked about Waves at the very, very start was that all their main focus was creating tools for mixers. They were asking the mixers, what is it that you actually need in the box? And they were saying, we need that, we need that. They were all utilities. Swiss Army knives, we need that, we need this, we need that, we need that, we need that to do a certain thing, that to do a certain thing. And that's why they were used. But then I think the way that obviously the cultures went is that analog emulations all of a sudden just like, I'd like to think that we're on the downcline of analog emulations now. I think everybody's starting to get to the point where they're realizing that, you know, you don't need 8 Pultecs, you don't need 10 SSLs, you don't need 8 APIs. Do you even need an SSL and an API or a Manley, you know, whatever? You don't really need it. Most of the times when, like, I see most mixers, it's Pro Q3, a clean linear digital EQ, and whatever compressor just would work for them. There'll be times I'm in a mix and I'm just like, 1176 on this drum room. I need to smash it. I need to bring out a little bit more of the room. And I just go for whatever 1176 I've got. I don't even think about it. I used to be like that. And I used to think this analytical thing where this 1% here and this 2% and this 3% will add up. When really it's just about decision making, isn't it? That's all mixing is. It's decision making. And what we've always said is that mixing, no matter what the tool does, it's basically you're in the cockpit and you've always got to have your hand behind the wheel. And you've always got to be in charge of the journey. And I think that's the problem with AI. And that's probably how it's best to end this podcast, is that the journey is the most important. Your job is to facilitate the end of that journey. Genuinely, you've got you and the mastering engineer. The songwriter is obviously the artist has written the song. The producer has helped them craft it. It's got to you. You're at the end of the journey, and you and the mastering engineer just have to get that landed to its destination. And that's genuinely it. It's a whole journey, and you've got to respect the journey. And without that journey, I do think that's where, we'll end up with all music sounding the same, and we won't have, we won't have the resurgence of things like grunge and, people fighting back and new genres. You know what I mean? That's the way music has been. We went from the 50s to the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It's all been an evolution of music. And it's all been because
and a response to music.
Correct. And it's a human thing. And we should never, ever, ever lose the human instinct. We should always have humans, in my opinion, at the wheel. And the journey should always follow, a human being. Because you know what? It's fun. And that's what we love about it. Me and Ed and Sam and everybody we know that works on audio, the reason we do it is because we love working on music. We're passionate about it. You know what I mean? We love hearing, I love it when me and Ed get a multi-track to mix and we love the song. And I'm just like, oh man, it's so great when you mix a song that you love and you respect it. And there's been lots of records me and Ed have had where I've loved the lyrics and I've been like, oh my God, this is great. And you discover music. And that's the thing you learn from Manny and stuff like that, that the guys at the top, your Mannies and your Spikes and your Sherbins, they're always listening to what's going about. They'll be listening to what's in the top 10, what's in this genre, what's happening here. And they'll listen to the trends and the changes. And it's all a journey. And, that's what the most important thing is. And that's something that me and Ed will never, ever change on this podcast, is focusing on that journey. And getting, great engineers like Sam on here to discuss the journey and enforce that impact of how important the journey is. So Sam, honestly, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
Everybody that comes on always are like, I don't think I gave that much. Honestly, all of yous give. Honestly, Ed, every time you do an interview, we're always like, you can't think you can get any more insights, and we always walk away and go, oh, that was great. Oh, that was a great point. That was a great point.
The information we extrapolate from our guests and the information the guests deliver, this channel should be on hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
Oh, totally.
Given how valuable the content is that the people who come on provide. So thank you, Sam, again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Chad, and thank you, Paul. Wow, incredible.
On that bombshell, it's been emotional. Thanks for tuning into the Working Audio Tools podcast. Check out the VIP link to DistroKid below to get 30% off your first year subscription. Please like, share, and subscribe, and give us an Apple review. Those things really help us share the love and the valuable information on this podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.